Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to Misinformation in Science and Society. Here to listen, not to judge. I'm your host Annie, and today with us we have Sheldon Siegel. Alright, so welcome. Could you please just really quickly introduce yourself a little bit and what you do?
Oh, thanks very much. My name is Sheldon Siegel. I am talking to you from the suburban San Francisco area in Marin County, just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. I graduated from what was then New Trier West in 1976. I was a lawyer with big firms in San Francisco for about 40 years. And I've also written 15 novels, many of which are bestsellers. They're legal thrillers set here in San Francisco. I also wrote one book, one novel set in the Chicago area. So I've had a couple of careers over the years, and I enjoyed both of them. And nowadays, I am strictly a writer, but I still keep up with what's going on in the legal profession because I still have a lot of friends who are still working at the firm where I worked for many years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as you mentioned, you've spent like significant years in like the legal profession before diving into the world of like fiction and like writing. So how has your background as like a practicing like attorney like influenced your like narratives, especially? Um, yeah, how has it influenced your narratives?
Well, it's interesting because in real life, I was a corporate lawyer for the entire time, which meant I worked on contracts and securities offerings and mergers and acquisitions, all transactional stuff. My novels are all about criminal law, and I've never actually handled a criminal case, not even a parking ticket. So I'm very fortunate because I have friends who are public defenders and prosecutors and judges and police officers. Police officers are the best sources because they like to talk about what they do. Uh, and so I've written all these books about the criminal justice system here in San Francisco. I mean, I have a pretty good background in how that is supposed to go, and of course, I read a lot of books in that genre, including probably the inspiration for a lot of lawyers was another New Trier grad named Scott Turow, who you might try to chat with at some point. He's written probably a dozen novels, and the first of which was a book called Presumed Innocent, which was a big bestseller in the 80s and became a big movie with Harrison Ford and Brian Dennehy. So it's kind of weird because I'm really not. I write about sort of what I know, but I really don't know it in detail. So I have to do a fair amount of research to figure out how the justice system works in real life.
Hmm. Yeah, and just curious, are your like characters like entirely fictional creations or sometimes like inspired by real life
Oh,
people?
that's a really good question. The answer is a lot of the characters have elements of people I know or have come across over the years, but they are fictional. However, I would say this much: the main character in my books, Mike Daly, who's a small-time criminal defense attorney here in San Francisco, his background is not similar to mine, but he sounds just like me. And
Mhm.
people have noticed that the characters in the book sound a lot like I am. And we've been talking for, 5 minutes now. And if you pick up one of my books, if you get through the first chapter or the first part of chapter one, you'll realize, man, that sounds just like the guy talking to me now.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a really cool element. And yeah,
I,
so
I would also say this, to your viewers who are interested in writing novels, and there's probably a lot of them. It seems like everybody I know, including most of the lawyers at our law firm, everybody wants to try to write a novel. And one thing I learned early on was you should try to write in a voice that's comfortable for you. It doesn't have to be your own voice, but I couldn't write like dark noir, Dashiell Hammett kind of stuff. It's just not in my personality.
uh
And it's not what's most important is that your narrative voice sound authentic. It's not so much that it is real. Although, if people think you know what you're talking about, it's probably a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And
Give
yeah,
me half a sec. The sun just came out.
all right.
Yeah, that's better. Oh, no, my head is still there. Okay, I think that's it. Sorry.
No worries, yeah. All right, yeah, more about like the writing processes. So, you started writing while maintaining a day job, if that's correct. So how did you manage like balancing your career and with like passion and like with your passion and like storytelling?
Yeah, I didn't sleep much for a number of years. To be honest, when I wrote my first novel, I was working full time as a lawyer with a big firm, and it's a very interesting job. It's a very challenging job. Oh, sorry, there goes the cat. But it's also a very demanding job, and so it was important to me to take care of my clients.
Mm,
And with big law firms, that often involves working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, not all the time, but if something's going on, you kind of gotta, you have to be there.
mhm,
People call lawyers when they have issues, so it's our job to take care of them. But writing a novel is something I always wanted to do, and I don't know why. I think if you talk with other writers, which I've done from time to time, everybody kind of says the same thing, which is um, I've always wanted to do this. It's hot wired in my system. I have to try this, to see if I'm any good at it. And the reality of it is, there's nothing in my background that would suggest that I should be a writer. I studied accounting in college at the University of Illinois in Champaign. Great accounting school, but I went to law school at UC-Berkeley, and I worked as a corporate lawyer for a long time.
mhm,
And I don't have like a drawer full of manuscripts or short stories. I mean, the first book I wrote was about a murder in a big law firm, and that was the first book that got published. So, maybe beginner's luck, but I do know that I worked really hard on that book, and I wrote it late at night, on the Larkspur ferry. I commute to work on the ferry from Marin County to downtown San Francisco. My wife gave me a laptop and said, "I'm sick of hearing you talk about the book you're probably never going to write." Um, and I found out later, excuse me, once again, the cat wandered by. I found out later that, she figured I'd give up after a few weeks and she'd get this fancy laptop back. But I fooled her. And my goal was to finish the first draft of this full manuscript by the time I turned 40,
mm,
which was in 1998, July of 1998. And I beat my deadline by 3 days. So if your viewers are thinking about having a midlife crisis, instead of getting a car or doing something like that, you might try writing a novel. And then I got very lucky. I found an agent. I only sent the manuscript to one agent, and she really liked it. And she sent it to a bunch of publishers in New York, and they really liked it. And within like 3 weeks, I had a 2-book deal with Random House, the biggest publisher in the world, uh, for a big 6-figure advance. So, it never happens that way. It probably would never happen again.
mhm,
And, I got very lucky. And I found out when Random House offered me, the contract for the first book, my agent called and said, they want a series. It's a 2-book deal. And that's when I found out I was writing a series.
mm,
So I went home and she said, "You're starting the second book, right?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm working on it right now." And I ran to my computer and started typing again.
mhm,
So, serendipity is a big, big deal. And that book ended up, on the New York Times list for 6 weeks. So, you know, I'm very grateful because it was very unexpected.
mhm. Yeah. And so, so obviously like writing is all like fiction, but then in law you deal with all like evidence and like facts and stuff. And so in the legal world, like they facts and evidence are like paramount, and then yet there's like often misinformation in like any profession. So how do you like handle this theme in your novels and also like in your like lawyer life? And what's your like perspective on its influence on like contemporary society?
Well, that's a really good question, and I'm glad you brought it up. And I want to break this into maybe two parts. In my lawyer life, you know, I was a very conservative lawyer. I was the lawyer who told my clients, tell the truth. If you have something to disclose it right up front. You can't get in trouble for telling the truth. You can get in trouble for lying.
Mm,
Even in corporate deals. I mean, when I was putting together like a big merger deal for many, many hundreds of millions of dollars, the contracts always said, if you make a mistake, it's going to cost you a little. If you lie, it's going to cost you a lot. If you lie about the value of the company you're selling and the seller buys it, you can't just walk away. And it is really troubling to me and most lawyers that I know, 99% of the lawyers are just like me. There are, we think, we're honest people trying to keep our clients out of trouble.
mm-hmm.
The best way to stay out of trouble most of the time is to be upfront with people. And, that doesn't seem to be the case in much of at least the public discourse in our society. And it's very troubling, and it's downright dangerous. People go on TV and say almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's just to a lot of people it's just a game or a joke, or that's how I get reelected. But there are real world implications for this stuff. Just yesterday, the FBI, shot and killed a guy in Utah who had threatened to kill President Biden. And he was listening to all sorts of stuff in the media and, on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it was not true, or at least trumped up. And, there's serious stuff out there if that happens. And unfortunately, in the media environment in which we're living now, to get eyeballs and to get attention on both TV and more so, in social media, you have to be as provocative as you can. And if that means lying, people do. And I can't even look at Twitter anymore. It's just appalling, and it's destructive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry for getting on my soapbox, but fortunately we have good young people like you who are now taking this seriously, and you guys are going to have to fix this problem that my generation has created, because we've made a big mess of a lot of stuff. So you guys will get this squared up. I tell this to my kids all the time. You got to fix all of our mistakes of our generation. Insofar as it runs through my novels, the protagonists in my book are the good guys. They tell the truth. They're the people you want standing by you if you get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I view Mike Daly and Rosie Fernandez, the two lead attorneys in my books, as the last honest people on planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And the people around them are not so good. They lie, they cheat, there's always a murderer in my books, and it's generally not a good guy. The only twist in my novels that's unusual for crime fiction, and this was important to me when I started writing, most of my books have an element of a courtroom scene, either a preliminary hearing or a full-blown trial. And in those scenes, I try very hard to portray the police and the prosecutors and the judges as honest and competent, because in my experience, 99% of them are. They're trying to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch movies and TV, or if you read novels in this genre, the cops are always crooked, which I think is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The prosecutors are always wildly ambitious. They're all just trying to run for governor.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that is true, but not to that extent. And the judges in real life, in books, they're always idiots. But in my books, they are not. I've actually gotten mail from real judges who have said, I enjoyed your book. They seem pretty realistic. And thank you for portraying us as, competent and smart. Because that's not in fact, it's rarely the case
Mm.
in legal fiction. I mean, just watch a few episodes of Law and Order. It's,
Yeah. And yeah, and okay, wait. Um and for like I guess this is then like also more about like writing. So how do you handle like feedback and like perhaps like criticism from your readers, and has there been like a piece of feedback that has led you to like view your work differently?
yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, thankfully, most of the feedback is positive because most people, if they hate your book, they just won't buy another one.
Mm,
Most people who hate it don't take the time to send me an email or, put something up on Facebook saying, this is why I hate all your stuff.
mhm,
Um, but I mean, the ones who I do get a lot of mail, which is really nice. I joke about, lawyers don't get fan mail, but authors do. And most of it is, it's really very nice. And it's people all over the world.
mhm,
The reach, particularly now with ebooks and, the internet and Amazon. I get mail from, U.S. soldiers in combat zones. It's very gratifying. Um, but I listen to what people say. There are things, people have told us, we want to see more of this character. We really like that character. We like the interaction between these two characters,
mhm,
and I pay attention to that stuff. I've gotten ideas for books from my readers, and it's and I think it's a mistake for writers not to listen to their audience. Also, I mean, when I'm writing a draft, I I do have a small group of other writers who I show the manuscripts to just to make sure I haven't lost my mind. I mean, the feedback is usually, yeah, this one's going to work okay. It's not Hemingway, but it's good. Uh,
mhm,
but I do listen to their feedback too. A lot of writers and pre-published writers get a bigger group of people to read their stuff, which is a good idea. I mean, over the years, my reading group has gotten smaller, but you have to find people who are helpful, not necessarily people who'll tell you what you want to hear, but people who will, give you some honest criticism, and people who will tell you if it's working okay.
mhm.
That helps too.
Yeah.
Writers are all really insecure. I'm on my 16th book and I still feel like I'm faking it. When I was a lawyer, after about 5 years, and certainly after 10 or 15 years, I was pretty sure that I was pretty good at what I'm doing.
Mhm.
But as a writer, that never goes away. I always think, Michael Connolly and Lee Child and John Grisham, they're the real writers, and I'm just a lawyer trying to fake this stuff. But every writer says the same thing.
Mhm. Yeah. And yeah, going back to misinformation. So just what is something you think like a regular person can do to make sure they have like the correct information in their lives, and so like eliminate or reduce or avoid like misinformation?
Oh, well, yeah, I've repeated this to many people, which is Twitter and cable news are not reality. Okay.
Mhm.
If you listen to social media, you would think that San Francisco, which is still a magical, beautiful, spectacular place to live, is just a burnt out, post-utopian moonscape.
Mhm.
It's not true. It bugs me. I'm from Chicago. I love Chicago. I think Chicago is one of the greatest cities in the world. And if you listen to Twitter and the talking heads in the media, you would think that you can't walk 20 feet in downtown Chicago without being shot. And it's
Yeah.
not true. And that's hurting businesses down there. It's hurting the whole karma of what is a spectacular city. And
Hmm.
people say these things because they have to get eyeballs and they have an agenda. And I stay away from it. It's not healthy. And you can stew in this stuff all day. And that's the unfortunate part. If I joke about how I get up every morning, get on the exercise bike, and watch about 15 minutes of the news on TV, and I find out what I'm supposed to be outraged about, and then I'm over it for the rest of the day. So
Mhm.
forgive me, the cat walked by again.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like definitely a lot of things are like especially like more like exaggerated
Yeah.
and on social media. And yeah, I was on Twitter for like a little bit, and definitely um I saw that a lot.
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example of something that happened here in San Francisco not long ago. You may remember this, but there was a tech guy who was stabbed to death near downtown in a very nice neighborhood, and um, uh, and everybody immediately, the talking heads got on and said, "You see, San Francisco is falling apart. It's undoubtedly a homeless guy who stabbed him."
Hmm.
And when it all came down, because I know that neighborhood, it's right near our office, and I they're not criminals walking down the streets there very often. There certainly are very few homeless people because it's an affluent neighborhood, and there are condos, very nice area right by the Bay Bridge. And I said to my wife Linda, I don't think that's what happened here. I bet you they've got it on video, and they're going to find out that it's somebody who knew this guy, and that is exactly what it was.
Hmm.
The guy who stabbed him, they were videotaped later on coming out of a fancy apartment building together. They had been to a gathering at the victim's sister's house, and
Hmm.
the guy who got stabbed was having an affair with the sister.
Hmm.
So don't jump to conclusions. It's dangerous.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. So I think those were actually all my questions about everything. I have just two more questions just for fun, but do you have anything else to add?
No, I think it's really good that you're doing this. I hope you're getting the word out to people that telling the truth matters. There are repercussions for not doing that.
Hmm.
I hope that gets passed around to people.
Yeah, thank you. Um, all right, so my two questions. First one is what inspires you in life? I guess we kind of like touched on this like throughout the whole this whole chat, but what inspires you in life, whether it's like a person, idea, book, etc. And the second one was what advice or general advice do you have for people, especially teens?
Oh, well, okay. The first question, what inspires me is I'm very lucky. I've been married for 35 years. We have two wonderful kids. Now we have a wonderful daughter-in-law. Stay close to the people who mean a lot to you, because time goes by really fast.
Mhm.
So enjoy the trip along the way, because you wake up one day and you have a lot of gray hair like I do, and almost no hair at all. So take advantage of the ride, and try to do it with people who are important to you.
Mhm.
For my advice to young people, that uh, you know is find, if you can, something that you're really passionate about. you know
Mhm.
I really, I liked being a lawyer. I was not one of these self-loathing lawyers. It was a good job, it was an interesting job, very
Mhm.
challenging job. But I realized after I wrote a couple novels that this is what I really like doing. When I am working on a book, time goes really fast. And it's like, when you're in school, a little kid, and recess comes along, and school seems to go really slowly and recess goes really fast.
Mhm.
When I'm writing, the time just goes. I am so locked in, and I like doing it. And if you can find something you really like doing, give yourself a chance, to see if you're good at it. Uh, and if you can figure out a way to make a living at that, you've got everything. Because then every day you get up and it's not like going to work. Every day is like going to recess.
Mhm.
And this creative stuff it's very hit or miss.
Yeah.
Uh, You know, people work for years and years on novels and they never see the light of day. And I never diminish, you know, the amount of good fortune I've had because of that. You know, I'm doing what I want to be doing, and that's really what I wish for everybody, that they have a chance to do something like I've been doing that excites them.
Mhm.
So follow your passions. I know what it's like at New Trier. You know, I mean, I studied accounting in college. It was practical. But
Mhm.
not everybody needs to be, you know, the CEO of a Fortune 100 company by the time you're 30. Uh, Very competitive, but I do. I wish you and all of your viewers a lot of good luck, and I hope you find something that excites you.
Thank you. And yeah, that's all I have today. Thank you for your time and insights. It was really fun talking to you. And yeah,
Well, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I wish you the very best. I hope that the Justin Fields turns into a real quarterback and the Bears win a lot of games this year. I've been in California for 43 years, but I still cheer for the Bears and the Chicago team. So let's hope things go well this year. Annie, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
yeah, thank you so much for joining me.
All righty. Take care now.
You too. Bye.